In the previous lesson, I mentioned the word interest. So I want to talk more about what that is in this lesson. Interest is the cost of borrowing money. So there's kind of two ways you can think about this. When you borrow money from the bank, you use the bank's money and you owe them interest. When you put money in the bank uses your money and they pay you interest. So when you borrow money, interest is not a good thing for you because you owe interest. But when you're saving money in the bank, interest is a good thing because the bank pays you interest. There are two ways to calculate interest: simple interest and compound interest. In this lesson, we're going to just talk about simple interest. And in the next lessons, we're going to go into this idea of compound interest, which is the more common type of interest. So simple interest is the type of interest we're going to talk about in this lesson. Simple interest is when interest is calculated only on the original amount borrowed. This is different than compound interest, and we'll get into the differences between those in the next few lessons. So to calculate simple interest, there's a formula. I equals P times R times T. Now all those letters mean something. I represents the amount of interest in dollars. P represents something called the principal. Now the principal is just the original amount of money that you're depositing into the savings account, or the original amount of money that you're borrowing from the bank. R is the interest rate. This is always as a percent, but you write it as a decimal. So if it's 5%, you would write 0.05 as an example. T is the amount of time, and time is always in years. So to calculate the amount of interest, you have to take the original amount of money multiplied by the interest rate multiplied by the number of years. That will give you the amount of interest you're earning. Now, when the money is paid back, you must repay both the principal and the interest. This is the amount, A. So to calculate the amount of money, the total amount of money, you take the principal and add the interest. A equals P plus I. This will all make more sense, hopefully, when we do some examples. Bob deposits $5,000 at 3% per annum. That just means per year. That's just the way banks word it. Per annum means per year. So Bob deposits $5,000 at 3% per annum for 5 years. How much simple interest will he earn? Well, I'm asked for the amount of simple interest. That's I. So I'm going to use the formula I equals P times R times T. P is the principal. That's the amount deposited, the original amount. That's $5,000. R is the interest rate. That's 3%. So that's 0.03. And T is the time in years. So that's 5 years. And when you do that in your calculator, you're going to end up with I equals $750. What will be the amount of his investment after 5 years? Okay, so a lot of people will read this and think that I'm asking the same question, but I'm not. In here, I was asking how much simple interest will he earn. Now I'm asking what will be the amount of his investment. So the investment was the original $5,000, and then he earned $750 more dollars. So the amount of the investment, that's the total amount of money. That's A. A equals P plus I. P is the principal. That's $5,000. I is the amount of interest earned, which we found was $750. So when I add those two together, I get $5,750. So one way we can think about this is Bob put $5,000 into the account. 5 years later, he now has $5,750 in the account. I'm going to ask another question that's very similar. Bill deposits $800 at 2% per annum for 9 months. We have to be careful in this question because the amount of time is not given in years, it's given in months. So that's why I put this example in here, is so that you don't get tricked by questions like this. So how much simple interest will he earn? Well, that's I equals P times R times T. P is the principal, that's the $800 he's depositing. R is the interest rate, that's 2%, so 0.02. T is the amount of time. Remember this, T is always in years. So don't put T as 9, because it's not 9 years, it's 9 months. So we have to make an adjustment. What fraction of a year is 9 months? Well, there's 12 months in a year, so 9 months would be 9 out of 12, or 9/12. So now we can just do this calculation, 800 times 0.02 times 9 divided by 12. And now we've made the adjustment for turning this into years, and we can just plug that into our calculator and get our answer of $12. What will be the amount of his investment after 9 months? Well, he started with $800, he earned $12 more, so A equals P plus I. 800 plus 12, that's $812. So the amount of his investment after 9 months is $812. Whenever you're asked an interest problem, you need to keep a few things in mind. You have to know what numbers to plug in. You need to know what the principal is. You need to know what the interest rate is, and you need to know the amount of time. If it's not given in years, like in this example, you have to make an adjustment. Divide by the number of those time periods per year. So if it's months, divide by 12. If it was days, divide by 365. If it was weeks, divide by 52. You have to make the call and make the right adjustment.